Niger's military rulers have welcomed a decision by France to withdraw its troops from the country. The army, you may remember, ousted the elected president in July, ending Niger's cooperation with France. France used to be the colonial power in Niger. Now, President Emmanuel Macron of France says that 1,500 French soldiers who were stationed in Niger will leave by the end of this year.
After months of rising tensions and protests, Nigerians demanding the withdrawal of French troops can celebrate. France does not recognize the coup leaders as legitimate.
The only legitimate leader of Niger is President Bazoum, who was elected by his people. Today, he's being held hostage. He's a victim of this coup because he was carrying out brave reforms and because there's ethnic score settling going on. There's a lot of political cowardice there. That's why France has decided to bring its ambassador and several diplomats back to France. We are putting an end to our military cooperation with the current Niger authorities because they don't want to fight terrorism anymore.
People in the capital, Niamey, welcomed the news.
The French military must leave immediately because we don't need them. They've been saying they'd help us for decades, but we haven't seen any change. We want them to leave our country and go home, because we are staying.
I'm speaking on behalf of all the people of Niger. We're very proud of the departure of the French army and its ambassador, because they've provided nothing here in Niger. They came to at least eradicate terrorism, and terrorism is only getting worse.
Until the takeover by the military junta, Niger was a key security partner for Western countries, including France and the United States. The departure of French forces is likely to heighten concerns about Russia's growing influence in Africa. The Wagner mercenary group is already active in Mali, where they are allies of the junta there. But with the mercenary group weakened due to the war in Ukraine and the withdrawal of French forces, there are rising concerns that Islamist groups will make gains in the region.
All right, good morning. I'm joined by Chris Ogun-Modede, the Associate Editor for World Politics Review in Senegal's capital, Dakar. Chris, it's good to have you with us. There have been rising tensions in Niger in the past few weeks, with Nigerians insisting that French troops get out of the country. I mean, why do they want to see this withdrawal if the troops were there to help with the security situation and the threat against Islamist terrorism?
Well, the answer to the question is that many Nigerians simply do not believe any longer that the presence of French troops necessarily contributes to a better security in their country. You know, there's been a lot of, in the last couple of years, but more so under President Bazoum, who stepped up security relations with the West, with France in particular. There's been many concerns in Niger that the presence of French troops on their soil since last year, when French troops withdrew from neighboring Mali, many Nigerians simply saw that as a compromise on their sovereignty, and the fact that it's, of course, the relationship, dates all the way back to the colonial era. Many of them simply saw it as too bound up in many elements of an unequal partnership that they simply do not want any more of.
And I'm just wondering, Chris, the average person in Niger, what do they consider to be a greater threat to their security, the presence of French troops in the country, or, this growing Islamist insurgents?
Well, I mean, for one thing, it's very hard to speak for the average person in Niger. It's a large country. People have very many different views, some of which most of which are nuanced, some of which seem like they're contradictory, but when you understand the politics there, and many would reject the premise of the question and see it really as a false binary, because they would argue that there are a bunch of structural conditions that were created by the colonial legacy between France and Niger that have exposed themselves in the security crisis in Niger and the neighboring region. So for many folks, not just in Niamey, but broadly across the country, they see the two things as linked. So they don't quite see it as an either-or proposition of do you want the French presence or do you want the jihadists? They think the two are very much linked in a variety of ways, some of which, can be contested, but some of which definitely have their, historical underpinnings.
And we're seeing French troops withdrawing from, the entire Sahel region, including Mali, Burkina Faso. Can we say then that Islamist terrorism will most likely, or at least the threat of it, will increase now with these peacekeeping forces gone? Or does that get back to this binary situation you were describing?
Well, I should point out that French troops are still in Chad, which is in the Sahel. There's no discussion of what will come next there as well. There's no telling what will happen there. But more to the question you're asking, I think for many, not just in Niger but across the region, there is a sense of which they recognize the difficulties that are likely to come up with the departure of French troops, but at the same time, they do point out that with the presence of French troops, the security didn't get better. So at the end of the day, what have they really gained in terms of the partnership with France? And perhaps this is an opportunity for local and regional security and political elites to finally think very deeply, not just about the security situation, but more broadly about building a proper state that can secure lives and bring more prosperity to people.
Chris Ogun-Modedo from the World Politics Review in Dakar. Chris, good to have you with us. Thank you.